So, picture this. September 16th, 1994. It's a normal day on a school playground in Ruwa, Zimbabwe. But then, something happens that just defies all easy explanation. And we're not talking about a quick flash of light in the sky. No, this was an up-close, 15-minute encounter that remains one of the most compelling and honestly one of the most human UFO stories ever recorded. Now listen to that quote for a second. That's not from some wide-eyed believer, it's from Tim Leach, a seasoned, skeptical BBC war correspondent. This is a guy who's seen the worst of humanity. The fact that this story shook him more than actual war zones, well, that tells you we're about to get into something really, really unusual.
62. What's that number? It's not a year, it's not a location code. It's the number of children, kids between 6 and 12 years old who all saw the same thing at the same time. 62 separate witnesses. Just let that sink in. Okay, so let's set the scene. It's a bright, sunny Friday morning at the Ariel School. The kids are all outside for their mid-morning break, just doing what kids do. The adults, the teachers, they're all inside, gathered for a staff meeting, totally oblivious to what was about to happen right outside their classroom windows. The whole thing happened in the span of one school recess. It goes from normal to absolute chaos in just minutes. First, they see these silver objects in the sky. Then, one of them lands and a figure gets out. For 10 terrifying minutes, this being just watches them. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it's gone, leaving nothing behind but a playground full of confused and terrified kids.
So, this is where it gets really interesting. What did the children actually see? The headmaster, to his credit, had the incredible foresight to have them all draw what they saw immediately after it happened, before they could all start talking and influencing each other's stories. And the consistency in those drawings is just staggering. This was the one detail that came up again and again and again. It was the most unnerving thing for them. Across dozens of interviews and drawings, the kids described these enormous, dark, captivating eyes. They said the being just stared at them, and they couldn't look away.
And then there was the way it moved. It wasn't a normal walk or a run. So many of the kids described this weird, floaty, low-gravity kind of bounce, like you'd see in old footage of astronauts on the moon. It's such a strange, specific detail for so many kids to come up with independently. So you start to see this undeniable picture forming. A small being, maybe a meter tall in a tight black suit. It had this pale face, a really long neck, and long black hair. But the craziest part, many of them said it never opened its mouth, but they could hear its thoughts in their heads. I mean, come on, those are incredibly specific details for over 60 children to just make up on the spot. And this is the point where the story goes from just a weird sighting to something much, much deeper. A lot of the older kids reported getting these messages, these ideas beamed directly into their minds. And the message was always the same. It was a warning about how we're destroying our planet and how we're misusing our own technology. Well, an event like this, with so many witnesses, especially young children, it couldn't just be swept under the rug. It didn't take long for journalists, serious researchers, and even a top psychiatrist from Harvard to show up, all of them trying to figure out what on earth actually happened that day.
You basically had these three key people looking at it from totally different angles. You had Tim Leach, the BBC guy, who came in thinking it was all nonsense but left completely convinced by how sincere and consistent the kids were. Then there was Cynthia Hind, who was Africa's leading UFO investigator. She actually argued that the small differences in their stories made them more believable because it showed they weren't all just repeating a rehearsed script. But for me, the most fascinating investigator was Dr. John Mack. This guy was a Pulitzer Prize-winning psychiatrist from Harvard. He risked his entire professional reputation on this. His point was, look, it doesn't even matter if a spaceship physically landed. What matters is that for these kids, this was a real, profound, life-altering psychological event. And that, he said, was a truth worth taking seriously.
Okay, so this is the million-dollar question, right? You've got 62 traumatized witnesses, which is powerful testimony. But physical proof, that's the holy grail. Did they find anything on the ground to back up this incredible story?
And the answer, in a word, was no, nothing. They swept the area with Geiger counters, magnetometers, you name it. They took soil samples, and they found absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. No radiation, no magnetic weirdness, not even a dent in the ground. And that's the central paradox of this case. You have this overwhelming mountain of eyewitness testimony, and it's crashing right into a complete and total lack of physical evidence.
Now you might be thinking this Ariel story is just a complete one-off, a total anomaly. But here's the thing, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. As bizarre as it is, there have been other similar events that, when you put them together, start to form a much larger, stranger picture. So let's rewind nearly 30 years to a different continent, Ariel School in Australia. We're talking over 200 witnesses, including teachers, who saw a silver craft. But here's the difference. Authorities showed up almost immediately, and everyone was told in no uncertain terms to keep quiet. So at Ariel, the kids got a message. At Ariel, they got a warning to shut up.
When you put these two side by side, it's pretty chilling. It suggests the Ariel sighting isn't just some isolated fluke. It might be a data point in a reoccurring phenomenon, a mystery that stretches across the globe and across decades.
So, what happens to a person when they have to carry around an impossible memory? For the kids from Ariel, those 15 minutes on the playground were really just the start of it. The real challenge was figuring out how to live with what they saw. A lot of them were just met with disbelief and ridicule. Imagine telling your parents, your friends, and having them look at you like you're either lying or you're crazy. It forced so many of them into silence for years, even decades, terrified to talk about what was probably the single most important event of their entire lives. The whole thing really left this dual legacy. For some of the witnesses, it was absolutely a source of lasting fear and trauma. But for many others, it eventually grew into this profound sense of purpose. They held on to that memory of the telepathic message, and it gave them this deep, lifelong concern for the planet, a feeling that what they experienced happened for a reason. And that, right there, is the heart of the whole mystery. Without a piece of a spaceship or a weird soil sample, we're left with the power of a shared human experience. For those 62 kids, what happened that day was completely and totally real. It shaped who they became. And it makes you wonder, if an experience changes your life forever, does it really matter if it left a footprint on the ground?